A few days ago, I made a video of me basically just gushing with excitement over the comments made by Disney CEO that they're essentially going to just keep making Star Wars movies. And while I lightly touched on a couple notions, I wanted to expand on them a little bit more with 5 movies that I want to see made within the Star Wars universe. Now, before getting into the main list, I just wanted to do a quick honorable mention for something that I don't think would be as good as a film, but maybe more so as a TV miniseries, and that would be something covering the origins of the rise to power of the Hutts. How did they rise to power like they did? Where did all their wealth come from? And how did they end up in charge of such a strong network of organized crime? I think there's a lot of intrigue there that could be told with how this all came about. Now, the difficulty in this is that the Hutts, everything they say would have to be subtitled. So you'd sort of need another main character or set of characters that actually, speak English that we're able to understand. And they are sort of what drives the story, with the Hutts being in the background pulling the strings of everything. But I still think it could be really well done, just maybe more so as a TV miniseries again, rather than a full-length feature film. Regardless, for how much reach they have in the galaxy, I think it could be pretty interesting. That, and I don't think a ton of people are going to be dying to leave their homes to buy movie tickets to watch a bunch of giant slugs rise to power. Just my thoughts. Number 5 is Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now, I know a lot of people have speculated that the third anthology film that's been announced will be an Obi-Wan story, but that hasn't yet been confirmed, and there's also been speculation a lot of other directions that third film may deal with other characters. So for now, until we have confirmation, we're going to speculate about what an Obi-Wan movie could be. We've seen a lot of this character. He's a pretty decently developed character in the sense that we've seen him from a young Padawan all the way to his eventual demise, and even a little bit after that as a Force ghost. So we know a decent bit about him, but there is a 19-year chunk of Obi-Wan Kenobi's life that we don't know much about, from when he dropped off Luke on Tatooine to when he meets back up with him before they leave to Alderaan. I know a little bit of those details in between have been dabbled on a little bit in the Marvel comics, and they've been pretty cool to see how Obi-Wan, sort of from afar, tried to have an impact on Luke's life to try and see that Luke eventually realized the potential that Obi-Wan believes he has. But that still leaves a whole huge chunk of time. Did Obi-Wan ever leave Tatooine? Did he ever talk with Yoda anymore? Were there any other surviving Jedi that he had contact with? There's a lot of questions that could be answered, and plenty of story that could be told, even within just the context of Tatooine. So I think that's something that could be really cool with a character that we're really familiar with. Number 4 is Boba Fett, who is another character that a lot of people have speculated would be the main focus of that third anthology film. But again, until we get confirmation, we're just going to have a little bit of fun with speculation. As far as his character, not very developed at all. We see him very briefly in the original trilogy, only speaking like 3 or 4 lines total, and then a little bit in episode 2 for what is, in my opinion, maybe the single worst shoehorning in of an original trilogy character into the prequel trilogy. The only bright spot to that all was that it did somewhat set up a decent launching point for a possibly pretty intriguing story for Boba moving forward, seeing as how he watched his father and only family member get decapitated during this huge battle, and then walks over and picks up the helmet. That's pretty dark. But the questions kind of remain of how did he survive? What did he do for food? How did he get into bounty hunting? What connections did he make? What did he go through to make him so tough and rugged? And how did he eventually get to where he was when we meet him in the original trilogy? I think there's a lot of cool stuff that could be done with this, and that could possibly be its own series of films if they wanted it to be. Number 3 is Yoda, and for any filmmaker daring enough to take on that story, you've only got 900 years of time frame to work with, so make it count. What I want to know in regards to Yoda is, what was he like in his earlier years? Who was it that discovered him and realized that this tiny little green guy was so epically strong in the Force? Did he ever do anything amazing as a Jedi to maintain peace and order within the galaxy? And what kind of trials did he overcome? And did he ever grapple with the dark side? There's so much possibility over those 900 years, but I'm pretty interested more so in Yoda's actual origin story. Number 2 is Qui Gon Jinn. Now, this might surprise a lot of people given that I am not very fond at all of the prequels, but given everything we've learned about Qui-Gon, that he was somewhat of a rogue, that he was trained by Count Dooku, and essentially that he is the one that unlocked the ability to manifest oneself as a Force ghost after death, That's pretty intriguing to me. I think it could be really intriguing to see some earlier years of Qui Gon Jinn essentially as a Padawan to Count Dooku, as the two of them are out there fighting for peace and justice, but both feel somewhat of a detachment from the overall rules of the Jedi Order. The difference in the end is that when Count Dooku turns to the dark side, Qui-Gon still feels that obligation to defend peace and justice. Even if he is somewhat of a rogue and still bends the rules of the Jedi, that's just where he aligns to do good in the end. This also could be a second chance to show two powerful Jedi doing great things together, only this time around they could do it right so that when one of them turns to the dark side, it actually hurts you and moves you emotionally as an audience, because God knows they screwed that up the first time around. Either way, given Qui-Gon's overall importance in the main story of Star Wars, and given that later on they established that he is the Jedi that unlocked the ability to manifest yourself as a Force ghost, that's a pretty big deal, and I think a character that could go a long way with telling a little bit more of his story. The number one movie I would want to see is a story about the origins of the Force and the first people to ever discover the abilities that people could have by using the Force. Now, this would obviously have to take place a lot longer of a time ago in that galaxy far, far away, and things might look vastly different, but that is okay. I think it could be really intriguing, especially seeing those first people, the first person to push their hand forward and realize that something in front of them also moved using that power, and seeing them sort of grow and discover what it's capable of and what they're capable of with it sounds amazing to me. And that's not even yet mentioning the fact that we could see the very first people to choose to use that for good and those to use it for evil, essentially the origins of the Jedi and the Sith, but in their most raw and most unrefined forms. I think the potential is absolutely astounding for that kind of movie, and if done right, could be absolutely amazing. Anyway, those are my top 5 things that I would love to see made into a Star Wars anthology film, and the awesome part about it is that given the recent news, any one of them is technically a possibility one day down the road. But do you have any ideas of your own for something that would be cool for a Star Wars anthology type film to be made about? Please tell me about it in the comments below. You know I love some good Star Wars discussion, and there, again, is so many possibilities of directions they could go with this all. So, if you have any ideas, please feel free to share them. Do the whole like and subscribe thing with the video if you enjoyed it. And as always, everybody, thank you for watching. Hey everybody, thanks again for checking out this video. If you want a little bit more Star Wars stuff from me, check out the annotation link on the right for my top 5 worst changes made to the Star Wars special editions. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so. I'd really appreciate it. And again, everyone, thanks so much for watching.